There we go. All right. So we're recording. This is Gina Halstead. It is Tuesday, October 4th, and this is the ALC AIM session. We have a couple of questions on the table today. One about group coaching, how you kind of get started with that with schools and nonprofit organizations, pricing considerations, and I have a few other thoughts about group coaching. And we'll start with that. I have some other questions as well, but let's see how far we get with that discussion. Okay. So group coaching is interesting because it offers coaching to a broader group of individuals, to clients, at a lower price point. And it can be a more profitable proposition for you as well. So it's an interesting dynamic. Let me just pause because Cheyenne and Glenn, who are two participants on our call, were particularly interested in group coaching. And let me just ask each of you, just for those who aren't on the call and are listening in, to understand why an interest in group coaching. Let's start with, what's the motivation here for each of you?
For me, I would like to provide services to students who may not be able to afford, $130 a session. So I know if I go to schools in these underserved areas, there's not necessarily a lot of money. They can't pay $130 per student.
Right.
So in order for these students to get the information, I just think it's necessary to be able to offer it on a group level and, just allow them to be able to get the information because it's so needed.
Mm-hmm. Good. So it is that critical issue of affordability and being able to offer the services, the knowledge, the experience, the self-awareness, the discovery at a more affordable level.
Yes, and then also applying for different grants and whatnot. Like they want to know how you can, offer this on a large level, to the students that, they have that money for. So.
Wait a minute, clarify that for me. So would that be how you would apply for grants? Or how others would apply for grants?
Yeah, so my thoughts are to have a portion of the business that's a nonprofit and then a portion that's for profit.
Okay.
So in order for me to provide the services, I mean, I need to live too, but in order to provide the services to those students, it has to be funded in some type of way. I can do a few free, but.
Yeah. So thinking about grants for funding the group coaching.
Right.
Okay. All right. Thank you. And Cheyenne, I'm sorry, Gwen?
Yeah, so it's remarkable. Cheyenne and I are actually coming at this from very similar angles. My background is that I primarily work with under-resourced students, first-generation college students, kind of unaccompanied minors. And so I am trying also, I have my plan is also to have a nonprofit part of my business. And so that I can provide these services on a macro level that work in an environment like the Student Success Center I happen to be in Boulder, so at the University of Colorado, or like I'm doing at the local school, setting up this lab inside their existing tutoring program that they provide. But setting up this lab with this broader group more advanced training on top of it. So I'm in the same process of looking into different grants so that the school district can, think about bringing this in. And so we have, very, very similar goals, interestingly enough. Yeah.
Well, that will make this an interesting discussion. So let's...
Gina, this is Joanne. Do you mind if I just jump in really quickly?
Yes, please do, Joanne.
I spent 15 years in the nonprofit environment running a financial need-based scholarship program, and then created a college readiness program for underrepresented youth. And so I am totally empathetic with the other two ladies and the questions that they have. I also, since moving back to Milwaukee, have started working with a nonprofit doing the coaching piece as a contractor for them. So I don't know if that's something that the two of you have explored, but I do it on a contract basis. So I'm not actually the 501c3, but still able to provide the academic coaching.
Now, we can go any different direction on this. Cheyenne and Gwen, would you like to focus on that aspect in this call? Thank you, Joanne, for volunteering that.
Well, again, I don't mean to direct anything. I just wanted to throw that synergy piece out there to all of you.
I'm definitely open to any information that you all can provide, most definitely.
And I missed a little bit of that call because when I went to go mute, I hung up instead and had to call back in. But definitely I'm interested in the tail end of what I heard.
Joanne, would you mind maybe elaborating or expanding a bit on the contractor versus nonprofit, and if you think that this could actually be a whole nother discussion, we could schedule that either independently or in another call. What are your thoughts?
I certainly can give you some high-level information, and then maybe decide how deeply you want to dive into it.
Right.
If that's where the group wants to go.
Thank you. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Okay.
That sounds interesting.
Hey, Joanne, take the lead.
Oh goodness! On my feet. Here we go. So I ran this nonprofit up in Green Bay, Wisconsin for 15 years. It was a financial need-based scholarship program. I eventually went into creating a college readiness program for underrepresented youth. And in that program, there is a parent component, there is the student after school component, there's a summer academy and such. And as it turned out, when I moved back to Milwaukee a year ago, I reconnected with a group by the name of Pathways Milwaukee. And the Pathways program was the model that I used up in Green Bay. And Pathways is a faith-based organization. In Green Bay, that wasn't an option just because of the donor base. But when I came back to Milwaukee, as I said, I connected with Pathways, and at the time I was doing my training with CTI for life coaching, and then came across the academic life coach program. And when I presented that to Pathways, they loved the idea, obviously, because they didn't have to bring on staff and benefits and such. And so I created, for example, I created a 7-module parent life skill class because their program includes the parents as well. And then the academic coaching is done in advising sessions to their high school students. So it's sort of a one-on-one thing with the high school students. It's a group with the parents.
That is interesting. You're on the phone, you can't see us, but the people who are on the video, we're all sitting here nodding our heads up and down.
Do you want me to try? I don't know if I don't know if it's useful. Do you want me to try to go in through Zoom?
What is it? Totally up to you. It's completely up to you, Joanne.
Okay. I don't want to take up the time. If it's beneficial, I can do that next time. But I'm glad you're all nodding your heads. What are you nodding about?
Well, my sense is that what you're saying is striking is resonating with each of us as a really interesting approach.
Mm-hmm. And I will tell you, for Pathways, it is a substantial savings. For me, as a brand new coach, it's significant income. It's profitable. It's extremely profitable for me. So I looked at the way I set it up is I looked at, like, for the parent life skills component, I looked at how many hours I would actually be doing face-to-face with the parents. And then I calculated 2 hours of prep time per hour that I would do. And with the director, we created the curriculum topics and design the outcomes in accordance to what the organization represents. And, just looked at a coaching rate and multiplied it by those hours, which again, it's a 7-month curriculum. It's presented, one topic per month. And it's, what does it come out to? 6 hours per month, because I actually do it twice now instead of once. And then the prep time. And so I'm just using, I'm using a lot of the CTI concepts of, the fulfillment and the values exploration, and they're creating life purpose statements. And just, again, bringing in these values. Again, this is the parent piece. These values, how do you bring them into your family? This life purpose, when you have your life purpose, how will that change the dynamics and the impact on your family? So that sort of thing.
And you got into the pricing, which was one of the things that we wanted to focus on. And in your equation for really thinking through how many hours of prep time, how many hours of class time, and making that equation work for you is important to know. Did you have a minimum number of students or of parents in your group coaching in order to hold the class?
I don't have a minimum. We're looking at, like for the middle school piece, I think we have 70 families that are involved at the 6th grade level. And then I do the same curriculum with the 7th and 8th grade families. There's an anticipated 80% attendance expectation for that. So if you ran the numbers, you're probably at about 50 people per session. And my first one that I just did for this school year, I actually had all 72 families there. So it was interesting because we did I did do group coaching and broke them off into separate groups. To say, okay, here's the concept, here's the notion, here's an example, a demonstration. Now let's break into groups and, kind of the triad idea of coaching to get them involved.
Yeah.
So, was there, I don't do it by number of attendees. I do it by the hour that I am engaged.
Can you maybe just give a range of what that number looks like, the dollar number per student.
Oh, dollar number per, okay. So you're saying, so that entire contract, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or how much, I think Cheyenne's question is it how much each family is paying for the group coaching?
Well, see, the families do not pay. This is actually paid for by the program.
Got it. Okay.
So the interesting thing when you were talking earlier about the grant, it's actually the nonprofit, it's Pathways, that does the grant writing and the funding for their program that then reimburses me. So I don't get involved. I don't have to have a 501c3, and I don't have to get involved in the grant writing.
Mm-hmm. Well, I guess like if I went to a high school, although I think Pathways is a great idea, I'm definitely gonna look them up. But if I went to a principal, I guess I would need to, give them a price reasonably $75 per student, which is probably too low for 10 sessions. But something reasonable, and I totally agree with you about the prep time, the time that you're going to be in class, if you're adding on that extra parent piece also.
So just for the parent piece, and this is just kind of a rough number, I've really never ever stopped to calculate it. It's probably $100 per parent for 7 sessions.
Okay.
And that's just a kind of a cursory look at, estimating how many parents attend and what that parent component charge is.
Okay. That's, definitely I think that's a good number.
So my coach thought I was ridiculously out of line in not going much higher than that. Mm-hmm. But I will tell you, the coach that was in place with Pathways a couple of years ago did a phenomenal job. And they loved her, but her pricing was 2.5 times what mine is. Mm. And so they couldn't afford that.
Right. Okay.
So there's obviously, dealing with a nonprofit, there's pricing yourself out of the game as well.
Absolutely. So my other question is going to be, oh, sorry, go ahead.
The other thing I was going to mention is, if you do offer it at that reduced rate to a nonprofit, obviously I'm not a tax accountant, nor do I play one on TV, but you could ask your accountant if that difference between what you would charge and what you are charging the nonprofit, if that becomes a tax-deductible in-kind contribution. Oh. So let's just say you charge them $10,000, but you really could be getting $20,000 or $25,000 for it, for example. There is a certain amount I know that I'm able to deduct as an in-kind adjustment.
Okay.
So there's a tax benefit, I guess is what I'm saying. There could be a tax benefit when you do offer the lower rate to a nonprofit.
Okay.
I just have a quick question. Hi, this is Colleen. I kind of joined a little late. So Pathways had a history of having a coach come in before you approach them?
Yes.
Okay. But so, and then the other thing with the coaching with the parents, so the program that you're doing with the parents, it's actually coaching the parents as opposed to does it work in concert with academic life coaching, as in you're presenting some of those concepts too, so they kind of know what you're coaching the kids?
No, Yep. No, I get what you're. Yep, I get where you're coming from. The parent life skills class is specifically on how can you become a most effective parent and be the leader of your home. You know, we'll go, like I said, we go through values exploration, where for November and December, we're going to be diving into life purpose and eventually writing a life purpose statement. But again, to demonstrate the things that you learn in the life skills class as parents, those are concepts and practices that you should be taking home with you each month.
Mm.
So that it does not tie to the academic advising sessions that go into the life skills, the academic life skills pieces.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, thanks.
And there is not, right now with Pathways, there is not a set academic life skills schedule. It's more utilizing the pieces and concepts of academic life coaching per student. So I think somewhere when I signed up for the ALC training, I remember you can use this and create this the way you want.
Absolutely.
Well, that's why I was so curious, because I am trying to do that right now, kind of develop a couple of programs for parents and group coaching for kids. So I'm very curious to hear, how you're managing that.
Mm-hmm.
So my question was about like middle school. You said you coach some sixth graders and then you have seventh and eighth. I definitely think that it's important. I was thinking like eighth grade, definitely start in eighth grade. So just curious about how that works out with the sixth and seventh graders.
So the sixth, seventh, and eighth grade piece that I currently am involved with is with the parents. That's with the parents
Okay.
of the sixth, seventh, and eighth graders. Pathways does have a life skills program for their middle schoolers. It's probably, if I can say this, probably different than the way I would do it, but it's the curriculum that they have in place and they've been using it for years. But they go through decision making and values as well. They go through different topics, but those children meet once a week throughout the school year. And out of their 3 hours each week, they spend just under an hour in the life skills class.
Mm-hmm.
And is that hour in the life skills class, is that a group?
Yes.
Oh, and you're
Right.
You're the coach for that?
I am not.
Okay.
They have. I did it last fall when I moved back to Milwaukee. I did it kind of as an interim to help while they were finding somebody to do it regularly. But again, it's a very, very different life skills class than the academic life skills piece.
Okay. Neat.
Yeah.
So Gwen and Cheyenne, this sounds really similar to what each of you were kind of toying with. Any other questions for Joanne?
No, I just want to thank you for chiming in. This is actually fills in a lot of gaps in the plan that I had been kind of piecing together, and I have notes and research and lots of paths to head down. So I really appreciate that. Thank you so much.
Oh, you're very welcome. I don't know. Is it appropriate to give you my phone number if anyone wants it? Gina, I don't know how this works.
Absolutely, please. Yeah, so this is, I am so happy that I'm not the one up here just kind of talking. Part of this is building community and helping each other out. So Joanne, if you'd be willing to do that, that would be fabulous.
Absolutely. It's really quite simple. It's Joanne, Joanne, and it's at newheartcoaching.com. It's NEWHEART coaching.com.
Wonderful. Thank you.
You're
Yes,
welcome.
thank you very
Well, you're welcome.
And if I could springboard off of some of the things that Joanne said as she was describing the work she does with parents, Joanne mentioned how she does the group coaching, how she introduces a concept and breaks the participants into smaller groups. Let's spend a little bit of time on that, because group coaching isn't different than individual coaching. And one of the challenges is that in group coaching, you are still, as a coach, helping each of the participants develop their own individual learning, discovery, and mastery, but doing that in a group context. And that takes that's a different approach than one-on-one coaching. And so there are different ways to accomplish that. Joanne has mentioned a few. If you are interested in doing group coaching, I'd like to recommend a couple of resources. Just to give you some education in a sense. And one is, I'm going to do a screen share here. Give me 1 second. There is a class that I recommended in the last call. Give me 1 second. Where are you? Here we go. Can everybody see this?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I have taken this class, and so I would highly recommend it. There's a coach by the name of Jennifer Britton, Britton. Her website, I'll put this in the email that I send out with recording, but her website is groupcoachingessentials.com. She offers a group coaching essentials teleseminar that she does. She models group coaching as she does this seminar, and it's a really excellent course for helping coaches learn how to make the transition from individual coaching to group coaching, some of the considerations in designing a group coaching curriculum is too strong a word, but perhaps framework. What to be considering in terms of pricing, what to be considering, or what you should be keeping your eye on before you start coaching, your agreements, your first session, your interim sessions, and your last session. She gives a lot of different exercises and suggestions on how to make sure that the individual clients that are in the group are each benefiting and growing and experiencing, as well as keeping the group dynamic in sight. So her class is excellent. Her book is also excellent. And the book that I have, she has 2 books, Effective Group Coaching, which she published in 2010. The one that I have and that I've read is this one, From One to Many. And it is a terrific investment. So if you can't schedule her class, or the time commitment or the price is prohibitive, this book is an excellent resource for as you design and jump into group coaching. Joanne, did you have any other resources or recommendations as you were kind of designing your group work?
Quite honestly, my business coach was the one who guided me on the group coaching piece.
Mm-hmm.
And so she does a lot of group coaching herself. It's Krista. I don't know if you know Krista Martin out of Atlanta.
Oh,
Make
yeah.
Your Mark.
Yes. I don't.
Yeah,
I've never worked with her, but I know her name.
Okay, so she's the one who really was the one who directed me on some of the effective ways to do group coaching, as well as the agreement and all of that. So it sounds similar to what I think you said, Jennifer Britton, right?
And Britton. Yes.
Okay. Yeah, it sounds similar to what she offers.
Okay. So that's another resource that that I'll put in the email note so that you can have that documented. There we go. Back to. Yeah, so I think it's valuable to have a little bit of prep ahead of time to have really thought through the dynamic of what are the considerations in group versus individual. Joanne, do you have any, if you were to say one thing, one or two pearls of wisdom about group coaching that to share with the group, anything come to mind?
You know, I feel that what has been really effective, and I do some workshops as well, and I do it in there as well. Breaking them into those groups, doing a demonstration of what's coming, what we're talking about, and then breaking them into their groups of 2s or 3s or 4s, depending on how many there are, and then bringing them back as a group, to say, so what did you learn? What did you experience? What takeaways do you have from that? I really feel like getting them involved, because in a group situation, you cannot coach each of them. But if you demonstrate it and you're able to be clear about it, I think then it becomes effective, and then a lot of questions do come out of it. So I would say getting them, having them actively involved as opposed to a lecture scenario.
Right. And you brought up a really interesting point, Joanne, that that the concepts and the tools that you use in group coaching are extraordinarily effective in smaller workshops as well. Because it does engage all the participants.
Right.
Yeah. And that is the key that I would suggest as well. It's for the individual learning and development to take place. It's important that each person be participating and experiencing and not just listening. What else would be helpful in this discussion about group coaching?
So with youth, do you find that, have you group youth together? I know that we're talking about parents right now, but I guess sometimes I'm thinking with youth, it's possible that they may play around and not necessarily work on the concepts. How would you deal with that, or how have you dealt with that?
I'll start, and then if anybody else has anything to add. One of the important aspects about group coaching is designing the group alliance in the very beginning, in the very first session. How are we going to work together? How do we want to work together? Having each member contribute a request so that you have your covenant, as it were, about how you're going to operate as a group, and active participation, when I've done it, has been one of my requests, along with confidentiality, by the way, and respect. So so as the lead, the way I do it is I start with my first request, which is usually confidentiality, and explain that, get agreement from everybody. If there's anybody that doesn't agree, we talk about that. But if people don't agree to the design of the group, that's a discussion to ask if they really want to be part of the group. So the way I do that, I start with my request. I go around the room, get everybody's requests, we get agreement on everything, And if respect and if active participation haven't come up, that'll be my next one. And we just keep going around the room until we write it all down. So it's, it's on a flip chart or on whatever tool you're using. If you're doing this online, it might be, a note-taking thing online, on a video, and get everybody's concurrence. So that, when people participate, the youth, when they're participating in the design of how they're going to work together and agree with it, then that becomes something you can come back to if they wander from that. And if they don't agree, then that becomes a whole different discussion. Anybody else?
And when I did, this is Joanne again, and when I did the student life skills, we designed the alliance as well. But when they first came in, because again, they come in after school and, they've been in school all day and they get on a bus and they come to the program, they have their little snack and they're squirrely. And so when they come into the classroom, we would just always take a few minutes for clearing and just, throw it out there. What's in the middle of the room right now? What do you have going on? What's getting in the way? Let's get it over and done with and move on. And that seemed to always settle them down a bit as well. So I practice clearing.
Yeah. Yeah, actually, that brings up an interesting point, because when I did this with youth, it was in the evening, so it was quieter, but also perhaps giving them an exercise to become centered, to bring their attention back to where they are at that moment. Yeah. Yeah. Other questions or thoughts?
Just so I actually was going to ask the same question about if anybody had done group coaching with teens and, with the ALC as the foundation for it. Has anyone done it so I guess the other question I have is, so then like almost like private versus public. So have people done it just on their own, like Gina, in your own practice that you've offered a group? And then I know, Joanne, you've done it with Pathways. So have either of you done it in any other kind of, institutional setting, like a school or any other kind of organization?
Mine actually was done through the church. Started with my church and expanded to some of the neighboring towns, the same church in neighboring towns. So I did mine through the religious education organization of the church. And mine was not a whole program. It was several workshops, not the entire ALC program. My focus was on the high school students who were preparing for their mission trips, and focusing on their own individual values, their core motivation, helping them get to know each other, their group values, and their group purpose, and their group mission. So, and actually sometimes I did individual mission and individual purpose as well, but I did the individual as well as the group. So how did they want to operate as a group? What was important to them as a group? What was their purpose and mission as a group? What would success look like? What would it feel like? What obstacles might they anticipate, and how would they like to react to whatever might come up? So that was the specific focus I had. But you could take that kind of idea and go anywhere with it.
And I think that's really the great thing is that, we have all of these tools, but they're all customizable to whoever, you may be pitching or, promoting it to.
Yeah. And actually, to go back a second to that example I gave you with the mission groups, that's actually an example of a difference between group coaching and team coaching. Because group coaching, you're focused on the individual, and what I was doing was I was working with the individual, but I was also working on their focus as a team. So that those were and those are two different focuses. So that might be part of, and actually Jennifer Britton in her book does kind of clarify that and give examples for both situations. But it's something to keep in mind as you're designing your group coaching. If you're actually working with a group of people who will be a team, you'll do some different things than a group of people who are there as individual parents or individual students.
Yeah, that's interesting because as you were talking, I immediately was thinking about sports teams.
Yeah.
I was thinking.
Yeah, and yeah, so in this, I'm assuming I haven't taken the ALC sports training that John offers, but so I don't know if his focus is individual athletes versus a team.
It's kind of both. I took the pilot class for that, and so the focus really was on individual coaching, but then he talked about and explained about how he's used it for coaching teams and how we could do that also.
Yeah. And the coaches I know who have worked with sports teams, it's fairly similar to what I described that I did with the church groups. The individual athlete, and then who are they as a team, and the team dynamics, and which players do they know they can count on for what, and aspects like that. Interesting conversation.
Definitely.
Any other thoughts? Well then, since we have a little bit of time, maybe I'll go into one other question that another coach had, and let's see how far we can get with it. So this is a complete change of topics. And his question was, so this is an ALC coach, and he said, when researching coaching, the term sample sessions comes up often. Mm-hmm. So his question was, how should a coach design a sample session, and is it advisable to offer potential clients one? Which I thought was an interesting question, because if your only training has been ALC coaching, that may not be something that a term that you're familiar with. So so I thought maybe we could spend a little time on that. Would that be okay? All right. Mm-hmm. The in the world of typical adult coaching or I'm not sure what even to call it. Traditional coaching, why don't we say traditional coaching? This term sample session is used because many prospective clients, potential clients, have never experienced coaching before. That's becoming a little less of an issue than it was, when I started 9 years ago. People had no idea what a coach did. And you can, if you were talking to a prospective client or somebody who might be interested in your services, you could talk to you blue in the face and they would never quite get what coaching is. And if you think about a prospective student, that's kind of the same thing. You could explain and they'll look at you with cross eyes. So a sample session is giving a prospective client an experience of what coaching could be like. And there are some there are several different formats, but that could be used. But in general, the way, and so you don't tend to charge. So typically it is a no charge, 30-minute, maybe 45-minute time for a potential client to experience what coaching might be like, and also what your coaching is like, to give them a sense of who you are as a coach. So the first thing is to have so I'll just take you through the typical steps of a sample cycle. And Joanne, pipe in, or anybody else, pipe in if you have a different experience or another idea. But often it's having the client first select a topic, something that they'd like to focus on. And, picking something that's not totally trivial, like, they need to clean out their closet, but also something that's not perhaps so earth-shattering, like they need to change their job. Kind of something that's significant to them, but that you could actually manage in a short period of time. And then kind of take them through a typical coaching session where you have them explore what the best possible outcome could be, what they're hoping for, what their emotions would be if they accomplished or changed or did whatever they were hoping for. Help them see, feel, sense it, so that they become invested in the possibilities. Exploring why it's important to them, what their motivation is, why this would matter, what would be different if whatever this is were to happen or change or whatever. Help them identify any possible barriers or obstacles or impediments and think through how they'd overcome those. Help them connect with as I said, what the end result would be, what the payoff would be, what would be different, so that they've now gone from what they want, why it's important to them, what would get in their way, what it would look like, then bring them back to, okay, what's the first step? What's the first step you could take, and how are you accountable? So we have in here like a mini session. And have them experience, what was that like? What did you learn? What's different? What's occurring to you now? What are you taking away from this? And then most critically, ask them for the business. And asking for the business is saying something like, I'd love to coach with you. I'd love to help you continue to make this kind of progress, or I'd love to help you continue to work on this, whatever it happened to be. You had a powerful vision for your future. If you're serious about that, I'd love to help you get there. Some words like that. So that's kind of the classic sample session. Now let's bring that back to our work with teenagers. When we have our, whatever you call it, your consultation, that initial get to know you meeting with your prospective client, that's a sample session. Now we tend to do it, what John proposes in ALC is that you explain the program, you answer questions, and you do one of the exercises. You do a wheel of life, or maybe core motivation or learning styles. And that is very much in keeping with the idea of a sample session. You're helping that student experience, what would this be like? Personally, at the end of my, let's call it a sample session with my students, is when I remind them that first of all, I ask what it was like, what they enjoyed about it, what worked for them, what questions they'd have, what are they curious about or intrigued by, and then I tell them that the decision to work with me is totally up to them, and I'd ask them to think about it and to get back to me. So that's how I handle it. Any other thoughts?
Oh, that's pretty much what I do also. I find that that's kind of the best way to actually coach them a little, take them through an exercise, and then especially that part at the end is important to remind them that it's their decision, and they have to be engaged. They have to want to go forward. So, but you definitely, especially with the kids, because you think the adults don't have any idea what coaching is. The kids have no idea what coaching is. So they, that initial interview, is all the parents. There's no kid that went home and said, "Oh, please show me a coach." So it's very important to give them a taste of what it's going to be like so they can experience it.
What are your favorite exercises to do in that? Let's kind of talk about that. Favorite exercises to do in that initial conversation.
I like to do the Wheel of Life because it helps, pick a topic for them. And I also find it gives them other things to think about. Like you can almost see you only have time maybe to do one topic, but they're already looking at it now and thinking, oh, shoot, I wish we would have gotten to that one, So I find that that's very helpful. And sometimes I do the core motivation, but I find sometimes that's hard to get through in just a short session. But that is fun too, because that also gets their wheels turning also.
And I also like the Wheel of Life. And one of the things, Colleen, you made a very good point, that often they get really excited about, this would be something interesting to think about, and that would be interesting to explore. And so I'll make sure to say at some point, if we work together, we could explore this more. So plant that idea, in their mind. Yeah. And I've probably said this many times in this AIM session, but I always use the same phrase when I am telling the student that it is their choice. I always say, your mom or your parents may think that this is a brilliant idea, and I might really enjoy and look forward to working with you, but this is completely your decision. And I will respect and understand whatever you decide to do. And I leave it at that. The other exercise that I do is, let me just find an ALC workbook here. I think I may have said this in our last AIM session, but this diagram, what I call the step diagram, that's also a great one to do in that introductory session, because I have them think about something that they're a master at now, and it doesn't, and I tell them it doesn't have to be earth-shattering. It could be, putting on a contact lens or parallel parking, or it doesn't have to be Nobel Peace Prize caliber, but something that they thought was impossible the first time they tried it, that now they could do with their eyes closed, or they could instruct somebody else to do. And I take them through those 4 steps. Have them think about, what was it like? What was it like before you even tried it? What did you think it would be like? And then the first time, what were you saying to yourself? And what helped you push through? And that's motivation. What was motivating you? And there's a lot of learning that can happen with that. Then how can we apply that to another area of your life? You know, where else are you finding something's difficult right now? How would we apply this to that situation? And, you know, there you have a nice little call with some good learning and good experience of what it would be like. Thoughts, questions? All right. Well, I'm seeing the time, and I think we can wrap up. I want to say thank you. Thank you to everybody for being present, for bringing your question, Joanne, for sharing so much with us in the community and the broader community. That's how we all learn and grow. So thank you so much.
Thank you very much,
You're
Joanne.
very welcome.
This was awesome.
You're very welcome.
Wonderful. And our next session is on, it's always the second Tuesday of the month. So that will be November 8th, Tuesday, November 8th. And if you have any other questions or things you'd like to discuss or explore, please let me know. All right.
Thank you very much, Gina.
Should we send you like our email address? Like, this is my first time being on the call, so.
Yeah. So I do send out, if you send me your email address, Cheyenne,
Okay.
and so I do send out an email to people who I have on the distribution list, and I also try to remember to post it on Facebook. I'm not a big Facebook user, so that's not always on my radar, but the email would be. So
May I also, Gina, may I have your email address, please?
yes,
This is Joanne.
you can send it to Gina Halsted, GinaHalsted @gmail.com.
Okay. If I could get on that distribution list as well, I'd appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Okay. I'll email you also.
Okay. Oh, and I just saw
Thank you.
somebody had a little chat comment here.
Well, I sent it to you in the chat, but I'll send it to
Oh,
you.
terrific. I've got it. All right. I'll write it down. Wonderful. Well, then everybody have a great few weeks, and look forward to seeing you in November.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, Gina.